What can 160 years of experience teach you about the future? When it comes to protecting what matters, Pacific Life provides life insurance, retirement income, and employee benefits for people and businesses building a more confident tomorrow. Strategies rooted in strength and backed by experience. Ask a financial professional how Pacific Life can help you today. Pacific Life Insurance Company, Omaha, Nebraska, and in New York, Pacific Life and Annuity, Phoenix, Arizona.
You make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. We're a month into the football season, and guys like rookie tight end Tyler Warren are taking the league by storm. Every week, I hop into my PrizePicks app to check his projections to see his upcoming matchup. It's incredibly easy and fun. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome back. Tuesday, October 28th here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. He's ready to press delete bets.
Week 8 can suck it. Because that was terrible. Week 8 was the worst, man. Can we just pretend it didn't happen? I mean, I straight up, like, we got just crushed in props this week. I think I went back and looked the last 4 years we've been tracking this. Worst week we've had in 4 years.
Okay.
So there's only one way to go, which is up. The Falcons, Kyle, I'm half like, I love it.
Can't hurt me.
I also hate it.
Can't hurt me.
We'll talk about Bijan and Mooney and, you know, the guys that really, really let you down this week in DFS. But for Survivor, we were huge Dolphins fans this week. Go Fins, baby.
Well, if you take a look at this, I tented my pants. It was a great week, especially with the Jets comeback. That also helped our Survivor pool.
Jets, Jets, baby. Let's go.
Never in doubt about the Jets and a, Breece Hall running back pump fake pass to Mason Taylor. I mean, what an absolute dog, right?
Breece, when he threw that, I was like, oh no, this is not going to end well. Because the way he just he didn't even pull back for a full, follow through. It was a little kind of tap, and he kind of short armed it. And I was like, oh, this is definitely getting picked off. Mason Taylor just mossed the guy in the back to help us out a lot. So we've given Mason Taylor quite a bit of flack on the show and on the main show, Dynasty Pod as well. But huge Mason Taylor guys this week helping us knock off the Bengals. Who, so for Survivor, which was really the only good thing that went well for us this week. Was huge. I think over 30% of the field is gone after this week, with the Falcons falling on their face and the Bengals giving up that lead to the Jets. So Survivor is going well this year. That's about where the positivity ends from week 8.
Yeah, I think across the board, I'm seeing in our Discord, I got to catch up on a lot of data, a lot of different things from the weekend. And I just, the overwhelming sentiment was, this didn't go the way I thought. The chalk did not hit for once. Bijan was played by 80+% of the people in double ups. And it might have been, I saw somebody claim this and I was like, I'd have to look back. It might have been the worst performance ever by a running back that was rostered by 80+% of the field. Maybe the worst.
And I can't even explain how it went the way it went. Obviously systemically the team failed. But if you tell me entering the slate, Drake London is out, Tyler Algier is on the injury report this week. He's banged up. He played, obviously, but he was, questionable coming in. Those two factors, and you get this matchup at home with their team total, I'm probably playing Bijan 100 out of 100 times, quite frankly. So you just got the 1 percentile outcome here from Bijan. Yeah, man, the Falcons just, I don't have to tell you, they disappointed this week.
Yeah, I'm not taking this team no matter what in Survivor. So that's just like, don't even ask me. Don't even bring it up. I removed them when I looked at our roadmap for the rest of the season. I just removed them. Good. They don't exist in the doc. Good. So they can't hurt us if we can't see them. They do play Drake May this week.
Ooh, I'll be watching.
Kind of a fun little matchup. Yeah, I'll be watching that for sure. Let's review this slate. We'll talk about week 9, which is a jam-packed slate. Like when we preview this later, every single line that I started tracking has basically been bet up in the last day or so. So I don't know if people were just so sad from their losses. They're like, I am just going to keep betting the over on a lot of these games because I want football to be fun again. So it is funny the way that like the markets work. You know, there's heavy hitters like Betz just throwing, you know, his house note at some of these games. And then there's other people that are just like, I think this matchup is leaning towards the over. You know, we get a lot of teams back from bye, so it should be interesting. But let's review real quick.
Weekly Rewind.
So if you want to, on the website, every single week I write a cash review. Betz writes a small field GPP review where we kind of talk about our process and the way that we build out our lineups. Bo Nix was the quarterback that you should have played and that everyone seemed to play. It kind of like definitely thinned out after we got news of Lamar being out, that it was like Bo Nix was the play. He put up almost 25 DK points, 4 passing touchdowns. So that was really, really clear. At running back, I mentioned Bijan, and then the other plays up there were Rashad White, who didn't get in the end zone despite them trying again. Derrick Henry came through with 2 rushing touchdowns on an otherwise kind of ugly game. And then it was really the question, did you somehow have Jonathan Taylor in your lineup, or did you go Jamar Chase? I think this slate was, because it's been so chalky recently, there were so many lineups that were basically duped with Mooney and Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase, Dalton Schultz, the Bengals putting up a -4, that like it really came down to a 1v1 or a 2v2 decision. So I would say across the board, it was a very tough week in cash if you didn't get different in 1 or 2 spots.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much how it went, right? Because it was such a clear slate, I thought, from like the running back plays were so strong, which has kind of been the case every year. You know, you pick your favorite of the top guys. Obviously, people landed on Bijan because he was a little cheaper than JT, so he fit more comfortably. And then also, like I talked about, Drake London, Tyler Algier banged up, the matchup, all those things. I thought the interesting pivot point here for the slate, as far as like where people go, I actually played a 2 tight end team with Dallas Goedert.
Oh, a little heavy set, 12 personnel.
Yeah, got to bring it back with Goedert and Schultz. And the reason I played Goedert in cash was because, like we talk about all the time with some of these plays, thinking about the context of some of these guys as comparing them to wide receivers. And without A.J. Brown in that spot against the Giants, I thought, okay, there's probably a pretty good chance he's at least, you know, air quotes, the wide receiver 2 here for this team. So that's why I landed on him as a flex/tight end 2 play. But I played a very similar lineup to you. Did not go great, you know, did not have a great week on DK. I had an unbelievable week on FanDuel, so that was fun playing Jonathan Taylor over there. But yeah, DK did not go well for me this week. And I think a lot of people, if you played the best plays, which, I mean, this is kind of how it goes in cash sometimes, and you don't have those players perform, you're going to get behind. It was really tough to recover from the Bijan dud, even in tournaments if you played him. Like, there wasn't really anything interesting that you could really swap into in the late window. So even for tournaments, the Bijan failure had a huge implications on what was happening later. Because if you played Bijan and let's say like Chase or somebody early on, it was almost impossible to like swap into Jonathan Taylor later or something like that. So it was just a tricky slate that if your guys failed early, it was really, really tough to come back from, which is what I felt for sure. In tournaments, I thought one of the best plays on the slate was Saquon, who I was happy to have exposure to. Sadly, I paired him with Bijan, so it didn't really mean much. But just kind of thinking and zooming out, like, you know, recency bias, all the talk around the Eagles has been, well, they can't really run the ball the way they used to. And so then it reaches a tipping point, right, where like DFS players over the course of enough weeks will get fed up and they'll just stop going back to it. However, with A.J. Brown out and knowing Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert were going to be really, really popular, I thought Saquon was just an awesome leverage play, not just on his teammates, but also in game scripts where you say, hey, if they don't have A.J. Brown, maybe Hurts isn't dropping back 35 times in this game. Maybe he's only dropping back, 25 or something, and it's a huge Saquon week. And so if you did play Saquon, I thought that was super sharp. really savvy. Hopefully somebody had a good score out there with him in there. But yeah, it was a really tricky slate, I thought, overall, and just one of those that kind of tough to explain, I think, in some ways. But that's the NFL and that's variance. And the fact that, we often preach like tournament-wise, like you want to stack, and usually we'll recommend a game stack, so you're trying to correlate. This week, all of the games were blowouts, right? Like I think the average margin of victory was like 19 points or something like that. So you probably didn't need to game stack anything this week. And
right.
That's an interesting, factoid as well when you're thinking about like, how did it go wrong? That's one of the ways.
Yeah, because a lot of the times you're building with the bring back in mind that you're thinking this game's going to go back and forth, and it just never really got there. Like Dallas, I played a couple of like Knicks lineups. It was like, okay, well, yes, Javonte scored twice, but you think about the running backs on the slate that just outdistanced himself from the field. Yeah, Saquon was one of those plays we wrote up. I know in my Tournament Takes article, I was like, okay, he's setting up to be 10, 11% rostered, and yet we know what his outcome, I mean, he had over 100 yards at halftime, then he has the groin injury, but yeah, Saquon was a really good tournament play. I was really fortunate. Betz was like joking with me. He's like, how the heck did you land on Tyler Johnson, Jets wide receiver, by the way, in my cash lineup? And that's called, I went to the woods. I went camping with my family, with my boys, my dad, my brother, came back and was like, crap, I didn't finish my tournament lineup. Somehow landed on Tyler Johnson, buddy. 15.4 points, leading the squad.
You're sick. That's the take home of the slate, is it's okay to log
Tyler
off on
Johnson.
Saturdays.
That actually was my takeaway, was like, man, maybe, and this leads to a bigger point. I talked this out in my article, but I wanted to get your thoughts. I think we're at the point in 2025 DFS where cash game formats, so what we talk of as double ups, 50-50s, or head-to-heads, is a different game than what we talked about 3 or 4 years ago. We used to say, just be better than half the field. Just play the best plays. Well, if everybody is kind of on board, and this was brought up in Discord, that there are, people that jump on board a, quote, lineup train. In other words, everybody's going to play this lineup because certain sites give them out, and that's fine. Then you're not really playing 50-50 anymore. You're playing, like Betz, we're essentially playing in cash. Let's say it's the, 4,000, 5,000 person field. It's a small field tournament where where 60 to 70% of the lineups are going to be. That's like where it's at right now. And so that's a different game now that we have to play. And I was really lucky. Like, I'm not using that as like a point of saying I played Tyler Johnson, but it is getting me to think about this as, if I know what a lot of the best plays are, like this week, I'm pretty sure that I knew Bo Nix was going to get played, Bijan was going to get played, Rachaad White, Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, Dalton Schultz, Cincinnati Bengals defense. I already know that there's 7 spots in lineups that are going to be pretty popular. And then it really comes down to two decisions. Should I think about cash differently moving forward as like a small field tournament?
I think it's an interesting point. So what I would recommend for people to help answer this question is how you should or shouldn't play cash. Like, there's people that don't play any cash, and that's totally fine as well, because people are seeing the same trends we are, and some people don't think the time and effort is worth it when the returns are obviously higher, when you can win more in tournaments, and that's totally a fair take. I think what people should do to answer this question for themselves is sit down and review your results if you have a big enough sample size. Like, you can't just take 1 or 2 weeks. Like, you have to have, the full season. If you've played a couple of years, that's really, really helpful. I've gone back over the last 3 seasons. My ROI in double ups has decreased basically every year. And to Kyle's point, the edge is not what it was 3-4 years ago. Like I've talked about on the show before, people playing DFS are not sitting down at 11:45 on a Sunday morning, taking out their phone and saying, oh, I like that guy this week. This sounds good. Everybody is building with projections, content around those projections. It's just such a popular game nowadays, and people are taking it more seriously. So that's going to have a effect where the market gets more efficient. It's harder to win. That's just the reality. So if you do want to kind of step away from cash games or not put as much as your bankroll into it because of that edge decreasing, I don't think that's the craziest thing in the world. I will say I have gone back and looked at things separately, double ups and then head-to-heads. My ROI in head-to-heads has been really, really strong for 3, 4, 5 years in a row now. So what I've done this year is I'm actually playing less double ups, and I'm playing a lot more volume in head-to-heads to just say, like Kyle said, to reduce the overall amount of lineups that I'm playing against that are going to be basically the same as mine. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot that look very similar in those head-to-heads, but you are way more likely to run into somebody in a head-to-head that just throws something out there that you're like, I didn't even consider that would be an option, for head-to-heads or for cash on this slate. So in my opinion, the edge for head-to-heads is still pretty good. Yep. For double-ups, like Kyle said, it's a 1v1 every week. And if you're on the wrong side of it, because of the fact that it is, do you hit the cash line or not, it's all or none. In head-to-heads, you have the variance spread out over 20, 30, 50 head-to-heads, whatever you play, that it helps to mitigate that. So that's where I'm at with cash nowadays. You'll see me posting a lot more head-to-heads instead of reserving all of the double-ups like I used to.
Yeah, I think the tension for some people is to say like, oh, well, I'm not playing cash anymore. You kind of brought up like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I actually think about this more of like, okay, well, this is just a new context or a new game we're playing that we're not playing. I can't play the same way I did 5 years ago, which is a great challenge. I think you and I, like, we'd love to be able to just print money every single week. And yet, like, the reason why we do this is because it is a salary cap based game. I have $50,000 to play with. And people are now playing in 2025 with, here's the best plays that someone else has told me to do. I will jump on board that. And the chalk has weeks where it just completely smashes. And over time, that's done well for them this season. I then get to look at that and say, oh, I agree. There's probably 5 or 6 plays that are really, really optimal based on this price point. And yet, you could pivot in a couple of spots and say that this play is also a really, really good play. Like Saquon was a great tournament play. We also really liked Bijan as like our top play, and everybody was playing him 80+%. It's not the craziest thing in a small field if you would have played Saquon over Bijan. That's not a crazy move to be able to say like, hey, I'm just going to gain a little bit of leverage and get, chalky elsewhere. That's the kind of move that I'm talking about. I think it's okay to be able to do that if 80% of the field's going to do it. Now, you could get buried too, but I like the new challenge. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, too, just a couple more points before we wrap this up. On the Saquon and Bijan kind of specific thing, I mentioned this in my recap article on the site for small field. I knew Bijan obviously would be popular, but like I talked about, I thought he was good chalk. Like, no Drake London. Are they really going to put the game plan on Kirk Cousins' shoulders? No, of course not. Like, they should be able to run the ball, win the game, all those things. Well, in hindsight, obviously, it didn't happen. But I talked about this in the article. It's like, at what point are you paid off in a way where, like, willing to accept you could be wrong is worth it? And I had take lock where I was like, I'm playing Bijan. He's going to smash. There's no way he fails. Of course he fails.
Of course. At home.
Yeah, they can't run into that building and walk out with a W. Turns out they can. And so I thought in small field, like, Bijan might get to like 50%. He was 65%. And it's like, man, any player can fail any week. Injury, bad performance.
Like if you knew that ahead of time.
Yeah, if I knew he was going to be 65, pushing 70%, like, sure, I'm going to pivot and just hope this one time I'm right. But I didn't do that, and I had take lock, and that's the tricky part with smaller field stuff too, is trying to understand like where the roster percentage is going to go and how crazy it could get, because you do see these plays get steamed up a lot. So that's one thing in kind of hindsight, which obviously hindsight bias plays a role here, but kind of kicking myself for that. And then I will say too, like, if you do have enough funds to kind of spread out on different sites, try FanDuel Cash. Like, if you're struggling on DK, try FanDuel Cash. Yahoo exists. We don't really talk about Yahoo content because it's not super popular, but Yahoo exists. You can try. That's in the optimizer too. You can take our content analysis and apply it there. But yeah, definitely, like, just to reiterate, the goal of this is we love to have fun and everything, but like, we all want to make money. I want to play against the softest competition possible. You might find that on Yahoo. You might find that on FanDuel. Like, just don't get stuck on one site. Like, be willing to kind of see where you can get your edge. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, and one final point, I really appreciate the conversation, because I think it's one thing to just say in hindsight, here's what we should have done, here's what the benefit of hindsight is that you look back, you see where you're wrong, but you also assume that everything is always solvable. There are things in the NFL that's just like, hey, you can just admit that you did not see, the Falcons losing by 20 plus points. Like, the number of bets that were on the Falcons, I think it was like 90+% of the bets were on the Falcons when it comes to like money line, all the stuff. I bet so many parlays were ruined by people picking Falcons money line. In hindsight, you can give all these things, but like, nobody saw that in the moment. And so it's okay to say that things aren't always solvable. Like, we can't just look at it and be like, oh yeah, well, this is rational. Sometimes it's irrational. And the way that Kirk Cousins was playing was irrational. It wasn't good. It didn't make sense. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine. I wanted to give a couple of shout outs. This one's from Ultimate Pokemon, one of our Discord members. First GPP win, thanks to finally putting in a Colts lineup. So it looks like a Colts onslaught stack, which is pretty awesome. Stack Daniel Jones, got Jonathan Taylor, some other ones in there, but that's pretty cool.
Dude, JT is he offensive player of the year?
Oh, man. I think he's minus 250 last time I looked at it.
Wow, last week we talked, I think he was like plus 110. Goodness gracious. Yeah, it's his to lose at this point. Another one from Bouchard BB. Also looks like an Eagles fan, so go Birds. After an abysmal afternoon, I'll take this as my only lineup for Sunday Night Football. Had a Tucker Kraft captain paired with Jordan Love. And of course, you had to have Chris Boswell in there because, well, the Steelers love a good field goal. Chris Boswell had 20 DraftKings points. He had more points than basically half the people that got played in cash, which is just a perfect encapsulation of what Week 8 was. But shout out to you, man. That's a great win. Tucker Kraft, that guy is an absolute monster.
The yak monster.
He's an animal. Super fun to watch. I love Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, and I got to read this one. This got some good laughs. We shared this with Mike, too, who was dying. But this was from Blockness. He said, boys, I'm going to Chili's, not to celebrate, but to pick up a shift to cover my losses from today. That got me really, really good. I appreciated the humor of that one. But anyway, we love celebrating with you guys.
I think we all needed that this week.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but Mint's premium wireless is $15 a month. But I'd like to offer one other perk. We have no stores. That means no small talk. Crazy weather we're having. No, it's not. It's just weather. It is an introvert's dream. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan. $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you. You know, the real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW, let us surprise you.
State of the main slate.
But here we are, moving on to week 9. So, fresh slate. Just things are super fresh. And I just want to say right from the start, this is a jam-packed slate. So many games, so many totals that have been bet up. I don't know if you saw the Monday night game. It's Dallas and Arizona, but it's now up to 54.5.
Whoa, baby.
So people are loving this. There's some great games in the late window, but almost every single game was bet up. It's an 11-game slate. We have 4 teams on bye. Cleveland, Philadelphia, the Jets, and Tampa Bay are all on bye. But on the main slate, we have 2 games that are right now sitting at 52.5. Chicago at Cincinnati and Kansas City at Buffalo. So a Mahomes, Josh Allen matchup that is made for TV. Chris Collinsworth is dying that he can't call this game, just dying inside. But man, there are a lot of teams. Like, I started listing all the teams with really high implied totals, and I felt bad that I couldn't include everybody. So why don't you list for us all the teams that have a 26 or above implied total right now?
There are quite a lot of options to choose from this week, which will be fun. The Packers and the Rams at 29 with huge spreads where Vegas expect them to roll. The Lions, 28 points. The Bears at 27.5. The Chiefs at 27. The Chargers, 26.8. And the Colts, 26.3. So Vegas expects a lot of these games to be kind of one-sided with a lot of points coming from one side of the matchup, which will be interesting to talk about from a DFS perspective. But a lot of good scoring environments on the slate.
Yeah, it's crazy that some of the huge home favorites, you mentioned Green Bay and the Rams at 29, the totals are just sitting there in the middle. So if you're just sorting by over-unders, you're going to miss out the fact that, the Packers and Rams are projected for almost 30 points. As of right now, we really don't have to do much debate. We are taking the Rams for our survivor pool. Just to kind of move on. Now, it was great to call our shot with Josh Allen, which in hindsight is like, of course, it's Josh Allen. A little bit of fear on the road in Carolina, but that one just smashed right away. We're like, all right, cool. We can be done with our survivor pool pick. But yeah, Rams, Saints, that one feels like a doozy. Any other general slate thoughts you have? Because there's just so many different directions to go.
Yeah, I think, like I said, from like a game stack standpoint, I don't know how interested I am in that on this slate, because you look at the spreads, like Lions are favored by 8.5 against JJ McCarthy, who, we're not really sure how good he is at this point in his career, but he's coming back in the lineup. The Chargers are double-digit favorites against the Titans, which makes a lot of sense. Even the Patriots are a healthy 5.5 point favorite. Then you scroll down and you get to like the huge favorites in the late window. Packers 12.5 against the Panthers. Rams 13.5 against either Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler, who got benched. And then, you look at the other spots and it's like, are you really that excited to stack up Houston, Denver with a 39.5 total? Not really. So to me, this is more of a slate where it sets up as like, pick the teams you want to attack and probably don't force a bring back. That's my early take on the slate. We'll see if that changes come Friday.
Did you see the line of that Texans-Broncos game? It's at 39.5. But did you see that Texans are now favored?
I did. Did it move when Pat Surtain got rolled out? Okay.
Yes.
He's that good. That makes sense. And I think they're going to get Nico back this week for Houston.
Yeah, it's an interesting, because last week we were all trying to figure out, like, okay, why are the Texans favored against 49ers? And here they are again against a Broncos team that's been on a roll, and they're favored once again. But it is a game that you probably don't want much of. I think the game that everybody's going to flock towards, and I also have to give an asterisk, is Chicago at Cincinnati. It's 52.5. I wrote that the Bengals defense is optional. They have chosen this season that maybe they don't want to play, and that's okay. They are dead last, tied for dead last in yards per play allowed. They are 29th in yards before contact allowed, so it could be a game where you see a lot of DeAndre Swift. But the Bears would say, hold my beer, because they are 32nd in yards before contact allowed. Both teams are suspect in defense. We do have to wait on Joe Flacco and get an update. So where is old man Daddy Flacco at?
Yeah, he picked up a minor shoulder injury late in the game. He went to the locker room, came back, did finish the drive where they went back in, and then, of course, we know how it ended. But by all accounts, it looks like a mild AC joint sprain that could be problematic depending on how severe it is. So we'll see as the week goes on. They called him day-to-day, which of course means nothing in the NFL. But I would not put it in pen that Flacco is healthy for this spot. So it sounds crazy. Like, I'm pretty much interested in this game as a full stack if Flacco is healthy, which, like, Joe Flacco deciding whether or not I play certain guys in DFS is such a hilarious thing. But, like, the man understands the assignment. Throw the ball to Jamar Chase over and over again. And with the pass rate and stuff, like, it kind of has helped open up some opportunities for Chase Brown as well, which is really fun to see. So, yeah, Joe Flacco is a key one that we're going to monitor throughout the week.
It was interesting because we went back and forth this past week if we were going to play the Bengals as a survivor pick. And, on the podcast, we basically said, like, we're just going to go with Josh Allen because we believe in him. And if we lose, we're going to be kicking ourselves we didn't play Josh Allen. On the other side, we were like, man, this is a good spot for the Bengals, but he's Joe Flacco. So we don't know. And we didn't know that, Aaron Glenn would just coach a masterpiece.
Oh, man. Can we talk about...
I was happy for him.
Yeah, I'm happy they got a win, but, like, can we talk about the whole, like, advantage of not telling us who's going to start and then just rolling the guy out on Saturday anyway? It's like, come on, man. It wasn't Flacco's fault they lost, by the way. It was the defense or lack thereof. And Trey Hendrickson also aggravated his hip injury, so he's going to be out a while. So things could be worse for Cincy if that's even possible.
Kansas City Buffalo is going to be a game vibes based alone. Like, I want to play this game. It's always hard for me. We've kind of looked at these games over the years, and I know that we'll talk about it on Friday's podcast. We'll break it down. But, like, is it more tempting when we see this game from, like, a real NFL standpoint than a DFS? Because the pricing and how you stack it up is not easy.
Yeah, it is tricky to stack. For both sides, really. I mean, with Rashee Rice, you kind of know where Mahomes' top target is, and that makes that stack easy to execute. It is expensive. So we'll talk about more about that on Friday. On the Buffalo side, it's always hard to stack Josh Allen because it could be Shakir, it could be Kincaid. We don't really know, right? Like every week we kind of just chase our tails with those stacks and it ends up being Josh Allen and James Cook. So there's ways that you could play it. I think for me, when I look at this game, if I am going to go there for tournaments, it'll probably be more of like a, kind of correlation like Rashee Rice and James Cook or something along those lines. But that's been the tricky thing with Josh Allen for now, 2 years running is how do you stack them because they spread it out so much. So we'll see. I really thought this past week with Josh Palmer banged up and Dalton Kincaid was questionable coming in, I thought like maybe Keon Coleman could finally be the guy. I don't know if he'll ever be the guy.
So this team is so weird because Kincaid leads the team in targets per route run. Cool. Shakir leads it in targets and Coleman leads it in first read targets. So then it's like, I don't care what piece of data you're getting. Shakir is the easiest click from a median outcome. And yet the ceiling games have never been there in his career. I just looked this up. This past week, he was the wide receiver 6, all right, before Monday Night Football. And Rashee Rice just passed him. He's still never finished as a top 6 wide receiver on a week, his entire career. That's if you told me that right now, it's like, why am I stacking this guy up? I don't know. I never get the crazy ceiling outcome that I think I want. Where's Gabe Davis when you need him?
Oh, tell me about it. This is the spot, man. Against the Chiefs, Gabe Davis would crush this matchup.
Dude, he knows. All right, sneakiest game this week. It's crazy that I'm calling a game that's at 49.5 as the sneaky game, and yet it's kind of lost in the mix of all the other ones. It's Indianapolis at Pittsburgh. The Colts rank number 1 in basically every single offensive metric you could look at. And the Pittsburgh defense has been really, really, really bad over the last 6 weeks. The Colts are 30th in scheduled adjusted fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, and the Steelers are 31st. So I think this is a matchup that can go back and forth because you don't need to think about the Steelers as a really tough matchup, knowing that the Colts are there. Now, the Colts are getting priced up across the board. So that's the conversation you're going to get to have. But I think the Steelers are really, really interesting in this matchup. I do think that it's possible that they could pull off the upset. I need to wait until later in the week, but I'm putting it on my radar.
Kyle, run to your sports book. Take the Steelers money line, says Kyle. You're sick. Man, that's an interesting take. I'm excited to talk about that. And you'll do your pace of play, and that gives us more of kind of the X's and O's matchup. Yes. But just kind of looking at that spot, I'm with you, and this could be a really good game environment just because of the fact that Pittsburgh, like their defense is not great, if we're being honest. Like they are able to put up pressure when they need to, and they can create some plays, but overall, they've really, really struggled defensively. And Indy is just, they seemingly can't be stopped. So the nice thing about this Pittsburgh offense is I did think there would be concern entering the season, like, okay, it's Arthur Smith and it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, are they going to butt heads in terms of how they want to play? Where we know Arthur loves to slow it down, run the ball, control, all those things. And Rodgers is not there in potentially his final year in the NFL to just hand the ball off. Like, and when they've been chasing him behind, we saw it in the Bengals game, like they're willing to chuck it. So my hope is that the Colts can get out to a lead here to make this a back and forth, because I do think if the Steelers are somehow able to get out to a lead, then that could get kind of ugly. But yeah, I'm with you. This one looks pretty fun just because the Pittsburgh defense is not great, and the Colts still have some major injuries in the secondary. So we could see more points than you think.
All right, which game do you think is going to be a little sneaky this week?
So I put down San Francisco and the Giants. I usually like to play teams in DFS the week after they look just, like what just happened kind of thing on TV. We played Stroud under 32.5 pass attempts, thinking this might be a slow-paced game. Both teams like to run the ball. And what do you know? Stroud has like 27 pass attempts in like the first half because the Niners could not get on the field at all. They had no first downs, I think, in at least the first like 3 or 4 drives. I don't know if they had any in the first half. The time of possession was just out of control. So rinse that off, move on, whatever. Now you get to the Giants, who they've really struggled defending the run. Obviously, they've also had some injuries in the secondary. We saw Jalen Hurts take advantage of that last week. So we might get Brock Purdy back. We'll see. And if they do, then I could really be interested in some Niner stacks this week with or without McCaffrey. And then on the other side, I don't know how much ceiling this team has without Neighbors, without Scatterboo, but just because of those injuries, you get some value on the Giants side. So for me, it's more of like a cheaper New York side, and I'm more excited about the Niners side of this.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be mentioning Tracy. He's at 5,100, so it's not like crazy cheap, but we know that he has the pass catching work that he can kind of make up for it. I think the game that I want to be underweight on this week, I don't know if it's spite, I don't know what it is, but it is the Falcons at the New England Patriots. The Patriots are 29th in neutral pace, and as much as we love Drake May, I do need to mention this, Betz. At some point, this hot streak of hitting 20-plus air yard passes is going to stop. It's not going to, it feels like every single time I'm watching the game, I go, well, that's obviously going to get caught, because it's just beautiful in the air. I think what I love most about Drake May, and you've been a huge fan for a long time, that when we did the scouting process on the Dynasty podcast, we're like, I think he's our favorite quarterback. Now, we thought Jaden Daniels had the highest fantasy ceiling, but I think we both were in agreement, I think he's our favorite actual NFL quarterback out of that entire class that year. I know we were a lot lower on Caleb, but anyway, I don't trust Atlanta on the road, not in this economy, and the Falcons are using single high safety looks on 72% of the dropbacks. It's the highest of any defense over the last 4 years, and Drake May is basically number one in every single category against single high safety looks. Not a great matchup for the boys.
What even is this team? I feel like Michael Scott, where it's like, why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5? How does Atlanta... I mean, the score was pretty close in the Bills game. The actual game was not as close as the score at the end. They dominated the Bills.
Oh, yeah. Then
they get embarrassed by a Dolphins team that's kind of circling the drain. The Panthers run it up 30-0. What are the Falcons? Nobody knows.
They just lack, strong male leadership. There's just a bunch of betas just walking around, I'm just the NFL is crazy. I think people don't realize when you look at a schedule before the season, every single year, everyone's like, we got 9 or 10 wins in us. It does not work out that way. In the season, you can get pessimistic, but before the season, I can't tell you how many years all of my Falcons friends say 9 or 10 wins. It's no, we've never been at 9 or 10 wins. We are usually a 7 or 8 win team, but you kind of see it, and you kind of see we don't have a quarterback. We have 2 that think that maybe they can solve the problem, and we also have a coaching staff that refuses to get creative. I don't think Zach Robinson lasts the year, sadly. Former, buddy of mine.
Former colleague.
Yep.
Oh, man. What a frustrating team. Real quick on the, before we move on from the Falcons and the Patriots, have you seen the updated MVP odds?
He was 3rd last time I checked.
He is. I'm looking on FanDuel right now. Mahomes is the favorite at plus 150. Josh Allen at 4-1. Drake May, 4.5-1, 3rd most likely to win MVP based on those odds. So, who could have seen it coming, man? The Patriots. What a team.
We should have hedged where we played Drake May a ton in best ball, but we didn't bet the MVP. Why did we not do that?
We did do that.
Oh, we did?
I mean, I have a ton of Drake May. Why don't you?
Dang it. I don't have... No. I do in best ball, but do we have MVP tickets?
Oh, no. I mentioned on, I think it was last week, we did an awards update that I have a tough time seeing... I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I have a tough time seeing the Patriots win 12, 13 games, maybe 14 games, whereas you can still see it with the Chiefs exploding or the Bills going on a run or whatever. And so my take was, I'm going to take Drake May for Offensive Player of the Year in the event that Jonathan Taylor maybe falls off. Well, I don't think he's ever going to fall off, so that looks like, a couple bucks down the drain. But when I took him last week, he was 150-1 was Drake May to win Offensive Player of the Year, which was the same odds as Aaron Jones. So no disrespect to Aaron, but those odds were were crazy. So I took it. Hey, we got closing line value, Kyle. So at least we can feed our kids with that. But yeah, I don't know if he'll win anything. I hope he wins MVP. How fun would that be for this guy to come out of, in the public's image, come out of nowhere and then win it over, Mahomes and Allen, who are the stars. But we'll see. A lot of NFL season to go.
Yeah, I was thinking about I was really bullish on Justin Herbert, who's been awesome for fantasy. He's not going to win MVP because of the record. But my thinking was correlated with that. if I'm really that into him for best ball, then I'm also saying that he has a shot at MVP, and I think we got good value on that one as well. Doesn't matter anymore, but I guess like next year, let's just bet Drake May.
Okay, that sounds good. My game that I'm going to be underweight on is Rams and Saints. And don't get me wrong, like certainly you can play some Rams, and I'm into that. But the question I have is just like, how much will Rattler / Tyler Shuck fight back on the other side? The game is a massive, massive spread. The Rams are throwing at a 64% rate when the game is within one score, but when they're up by a touchdown or more, they pretty much just kind of turtle up and hand the ball off. They're only throwing at a 47% rate in those situations. So assuming Rams can get out to a lead, as the spread suggests, I think you'll see some pretty limited play volume, and just they'll be content to kind of feed Kyron and Blake Corum.
All right, the team that I'm most confident hitting the over of their implied total this week is the Bears, which the Bears are another weird team week to week. But Cincinnati, since week 2, has allowed 34 points per game. It's been 27, 48, 28, 37, 27, 31, and 39. In other words, 27 points every single week they've allowed. They're allowing the 4th highest yards before contact, and they're allowing the highest fantasy points per dropback using 2 high safety looks. I think this is a matchup where you do get to see the Bears roll. So I'm in.
Makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to take the Colts, 26.3, because, well, they just keep doing this. But also Pittsburgh, as we talked about, the defense, not great. They are 24th in yards per play allowed. They are 25th in EPA per play. Meanwhile, the mismatch on the other side, the Colts are first in EPA per play. They're first in yards per play. So to me, on paper, this looks like a spot where things are favorable for Indy.
I'm not really big on Carolina this week in terms of teams that I'm not confident in their implied total. They're at 16.5, which sounds low, but Green Bay is allowing the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game. And Carolina just doesn't have, like, you look at certain teams, they don't have answers against zone. 1.20 yards per out run as a team against zone. That is the 3rd lowest in the NFL. They have 1 total receiving touchdown on the year against zone coverage from their wide receivers and tight ends. Green Bay runs cover 2 and cover 3 a lot. Let me see if I can find the number. It's exactly 55% of the time. So I think Carolina just doesn't have the answers. We'll see about Bryce Young. By the way, did Andy Dalton have a plan before the game just to like, hey, I'm going to drop the ball as many times as possible? Like, he could not hold on to the ball.
They were in scoring position a couple times, and if they punch one of those in or even kick a field goal sometimes, like the score, I think the Bills would have pulled away eventually, but like the game could have stayed more competitive for a longer period of time. But yeah, I don't know. It's a friendly reminder. Sometimes we think the backup comes in and we're like, yes, the backup's in, the starter's terrible. But like those guys are backups for a reason. So we saw that across the league at times this week. Yeah, tough outing there. We'll see. They're kind of giving Bryce Young like a 50-50 chance to play this week. We'll see on that. But either way, I'm with you. I think they could get kind of overwhelmed here. They had another offensive line injury, torn Achilles, did the Panthers, which obviously is bad news with the Packers pass rush on tap. I'm going to take under 19.5 for the Vikings in a divisional matchup.
The vibes are bad.
The vibes are not great. Divisional matchup here against the Lions. A lot of this comes down to like trending health for each side. I think McCarthy's healthy, but the offensive line is not. They're still having issues without their center. Christian Darrisaw, he had ACL surgery last year. He was questionable coming into that short week on Thursday night because he had some soreness, and then he had to leave early. So I don't know if he's going to play this week, but your left tackle potentially limited or out. They still don't have the right tackle back. Like, that could be problematic for McCarthy, who's been really, really struggling under pressure in a small sample size. On the other side, we'll see what the Lions look like defensively, but going into the bye week, they were just crushed in the secondary by injury. I think there's a good chance they could get 1 or 2 of those guys back here. So for me, I'm going to go under 19.5 on the Lions.
On the Vikings.
On the Vikings, I'm sorry, yes.
There you go. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you know, the real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW, let us surprise you.
All right, we're going to get you ready for week 9 and talk about some players that we already have circled in our player pools.
Salary standouts.
There's a lot of quarterbacks I like already. Maybe it's because all of these totals I'm looking at right in front of me. Josh Allen is only 7,300, and he's Josh Allen. I don't know if you've heard. He's good at the game. He leads this entire slate in fantasy points per dropback. That's good. Right below him, though, fantasy points per dropback, Jackson Dart, who's only 5,200. It's hard to figure out like how to stack him in tournaments, but if you wanted to play him in cash, 5,200, I don't think that's insane at all by the way that he's running the ball. But I think Daniel Jones is kind of the sweet spot of price. He runs, their implied total, the defense, he's 6,200. Like he's the one who I've circled early in the week as like, okay, this makes sense for cash.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm with you. Over on FanDuel, I think Caleb sticks out. He's 7,300 over there. Daniel Jones looks good too. He's just a little more expensive. But like you talked about, kind of liking that Bears team total. And, the matchup obviously is beautiful. So I think early in the week, I'm with you on those calls. Daniel Jones, Caleb, if you wanted to spend up on Josh Allen, any of that stuff makes sense. I will say on Dart, everybody last week was like ready to throw in the towel on CJ Stroud. And he comes out with a bunch of rookie wide receivers and looks great without Nico Collins against that defense. I think you finally saw the San Francisco injuries really start to catch up to them. And so maybe Jackson Dart can get it going here.
I mean, there's some other intriguing names. Drake May at 6,500. We highlighted that matchup earlier. Like that one's definitely going to pop. Jordan Love is at 6,100 after being the quarterback 1 on the week. I think he's also somebody in play if you wanted to play Packers onslaughts. A lot of different places that you could go this week. Justin Herbert against the Titans is intriguing, but at 6,800, he's not like as cheap as he used to be. So just another name I wanted to throw out to you early in the week. At running back, if you want to pay up for Jonathan Taylor, we're getting close to that 10K mark, Betz. $9,800. Is that too expensive?
I think it just depends on what value we get. He's $11K on FanDuel.
No.
Which, he deserves to be, It's just crazy when you see him at that level, and then there's, playable running backs in the 6Ks. That said, last week I played him at 10-2. And he would have been good up to probably 12K based off how good he's been. So I don't know where I land early in the week on that. It's going to depend, I think, on what we get from a value perspective.
Do you want me to tell you what the spreadsheets think?
Sure.
They are, agnostic. They don't care. They don't have the same feelings or vibes. Based on weighted opportunities, which is basically taking his attempts and then his targets, and we kind of boost those because targets are more valuable. It's actually not great because he's getting to the point now where even his workload, but he was kind of punished for carrying the ball 12 times this past week.
Right. He didn't, when you score from 80 out, you don't really need to carry the ball very much.
Yeah. Other guys that are going to project pretty well. McCaffrey obviously is always going to project well. He's 8,800. Jaylen Warren at 5,500 in that game on the other side of the ball, I think is going to be very, very interesting. DeAndre Swift, 6,100. We talked about how bad that Bengals defense is right now. Chase Brown had a great little bounce back game. His usage hasn't changed dramatically from where it was. Samaje actually looked really good and had a fair amount of opportunities, but Chase Brown at 5,900 is interesting. Kyron at 6,800, I'm kind of interested in if you want to go that route and just say, hey, he scores twice. They're at home. They're basically 2 touchdown favorites. I think Kyron's interesting at 6,800. What other names do you want to bring up?
Yeah, those are all the ones that I had on my list as well. I think it's tough to stomach the price on Kamani Vidal because when you think about Kamani Vidal up earlier in the year, this is a guy that was barely even on the active roster. Now he's 6,300. That said, he did get pretty much everything last week. Hassan Haskins was out, of course, on that short week. But they're taking on the Titans, and that's not much needs to be said about that. But 6,300, if you think that team can roll here, they are 10-point favorites against the Titans. I think that makes sense. I don't know if he would be firmly in cash conversation, but he's an interesting tournament pivot as well. And then, did you mention Tyrone Tracy at 5,100?
I did not.
Yeah, I think he's like, you're going to see some Devin Singletary on the field, but at least with Tyrone, we know he's got the pass catching ability. And, without Neighbors, obviously no Scadaboo, like the opportunity is there. And the Niners defense, like I said, has a ton of injuries. So I am interested in Tyrone for sure. If you're thinking about like, how do I play Jonathan Taylor? You probably need one of these 5K guys to kind of make it work. But that's just kind of how I'm thinking about how the puzzle pieces might fit together this week.
All right, so just go with me here, okay? Because I was thinking about Tyrone Tracy today when I was taking a shower. Okay, just let me finish my thought.
Clip that.
That's where I do some deep thinking. And I was thinking about like how sad it is for Scadaboo, and now Tracy's there. I think I took an under on Tracy's like rushing yardage for the season.
We did.
And now it's like, oh man. So like my point of bringing it up was, in best ball, I mostly avoided the backfield. Okay, and it looked really bad for a while. I didn't have much Scadaboo, and I didn't have much Tracy. I just said, hey, I'm not going to focus on that backfield. And now I'm like, I think I was wrong, but I was right, but I'm wrong. But now I like, it's like I don't know how to feel about the process of how I looked at this team, which brings me back to the point I said earlier about hindsight is you think that every single thing is solvable. Before the season, if you thought you were a Scadaboo guy, you were kind of right?
Yep.
And then you have this gruesome injury. If you were a Tracy guy, you're like, see, I'm right. And it's like, I don't know how to solve any of that stuff because I don't think that there is a way to figure that out.
That's why when we have these ambiguous situations, you should throw your hands up, say, I'm not sure, and get some exposure to both in best ball. That way you can have outs to different scenarios.
Yes.
I definitely had more Scadaboo than Tracy. I do have a fair share of Tracy just because both guys were so cheap. But yeah, the Scadaboo one stinks, man. Like, not just for people that have him, obviously, but like for him, for the team, like the Giants haven't had anything to root for in like years. And him and Dart together have kind of been this fun revelation. So really, really sucks to see. Did you see Big Dom from the Eagles delivered pizza and cheesesteak to him and his family in the hospital?
No, but so I've heard of the name Big Dom, but am I supposed to know him?
Yes. Kyle, call yourself a fan of the NFL? You don't know Big Dom from the Eagles?
There's only a couple of fans. Like there's the guy from the Jets who leads the cheers and his fireman.
No,
thing.
This is an actual, he's like head of personnel, which means I don't really know what he does, but he's pretty much just like, he's Big Dom.
But he's
just
Big Dom.
But yeah, no, he's on the Eagles sideline. He's helps like get the new players acclimated to the city, all those things, helps swipe the legal issues under the rug, the important stuff in the NFL.
This does not sound very like, yeah, it does not sound.
Anyway, I thought it was touching.
Very legit.
I thought it was touching that he went to the hospital, delivered food, checked on him, all those things. But anyway, the point is, shout out to Scadaboo. I hope he can get healthy and get right for next year. Just really, really sucks to see.
So did this guy just like get a job a long time ago and or like never really legally got a job and no one's questioned it since?
I can't believe you don't know who this is. I'm going to send you some links and some information on him, Kyle.
Okay, I don't know if you know this, but Philly teams are not really well liked here.
That's fair.
No, like to the point of the other day I was talking to another dad, not a rival dad, just another dad on my son's baseball team. And we were talking about different fan bases, and he goes, out of his mouth before I even asked, he goes, never Philly, never Boston, never New York. I don't care who is on those teams. I automatically hate them. I was like, well, I kind of like some of the players, but yeah, I get it. I mean, we don't like the Phillies. We don't like all these other teams. All right, Dom, this dude's definitely done some illegal stuff in his life. You guys, this guy works for you guys?
You know where I went to school?
George Washington High School, it looks like.
Penn State, baby.
Yeah, this dude definitely has done some shady things. I will find some dirt on this guy. All right, let's go to wide receivers. I'm sorting once again by targets and salary. And there's a guy named Chris Olave who's at the top of the list once again. And you can play him. But he's now over 6K. I don't know if you saw that.
Would you play him with Tyler Shuck? Not a stack, but like if Tyler Shuck is... Okay. Hey, I played a Rattler team last week, Kyle, okay? I'm a broken man.
I did too.
Would you play him in cash if Tyler Shuck is named the starter?
Sure.
Okay. That's all I need to hear.
He's fine I said, well, what was the number I gave? 6,500. That's when it's too expensive. Yeah, I think he's still fine at his price point. Drake London, 6,400. If he's back, I mean, his hip issues not helping things, but he's in that sweet range of, you know what, you're going to get to pay for targets, and you know where the ball's going. Our boy Pity City, which, you know, one of the originals of this podcast, we built this city, is showing out, man. He's a great tag as well.
Yeah, 5,900 on DraftKings. He's just been awesome this year. And this is one of those things that I'm kicking myself in hindsight. Like, I took a lot of Josh Downs as like a wide receiver 4 in best ball. And I was like, Michael Pittman, you know, like he's not as sexy. Like, what's the upside? But this is a reminder. We are terrible as a fantasy community at like identifying what that even means as upside. He's been awesome this year. And as long as the Colts keep doing what they're doing, he's going to continue to be productive. Obviously, a good matchup here. So yeah, I like him a lot. I did want to highlight, I don't know what this means for this week, but I just want to point it out. Jameson Williams is 4,800. How do we get here,
weird.
Man? How did we get here?
It's weird. He's not showing up in mine, but I think it's because I've created something in my doc that just says, make sure Jameson Williams never shows up ever again.
Well, the good news is he doesn't usually show up on Sundays. He is priced, I'm trying to pull it up right now, next to, this is going to be fun. Let's see if we can find some names here. He is priced next to, hold on.
Trey Tucker.
Hold on. Is he next to Trey Tucker?
He is.
I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Do you have the pricing pulled up?
I do.
Please do the names. I can't figure it out.
Matthew Golden, who has not caught a touchdown. Calvin Ridley, who barely plays in the NFL. Keon Coleman's right below him. I mean, he's just right there. Now, I will say there are some really fun wide receivers in this mix, like Kayshon Boutte, Troy Franklin's in this mix.
Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter is an intriguing name coming off the bye. So there's like interesting names, but I hear what you're saying. They're at home. James Williams is 4,800. I'm intrigued, and yet like my heart says I can't do it again.
I just wanted to point it out. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about how he went from a, 4th round ADP to here, but it happens. I will say in the cheap range, I am kind of interested in maybe like a Darius Slayton, 4,100.
Oh, I love Darius
as a
Slayton.
Cheap guy. By the way, that was a terrible offensive penalty they called against him in that game last week. He should have had a huge touchdown, and obviously without Scottaboo, they're going to have to help get some playmakers involved. So I like him in the cheap range, and then we're still waiting on Nico and Christian Kirk, but the Texans wide receivers are still pretty cheap if you did want to look there.
There's a wide receiver I'm going to send you right now, Betz, who's only $3,200, and one of his teammates just left. So you interested in Van Jefferson?
No.
I just want to bring him up because I think you like dunking on him more than any other wide receiver in the NFL.
Dude,
is that true?
I mean, he had
a terrible career for a second rounder.
Yeah. But he had one game this year of 11.5 points. That was back in week 6. That's more double-digit fantasy point games than I thought he would have this year. So congratulations to Van.
At tight end, your boy Tucker Kraft is 5,700. He's the most expensive tight end on the slate. Then it's Tyler Warren, 5,500. And then Aronde Gadsden at 5,300. This boy is priced up. He's actually ahead of Bowers and Kittle and Kelsey and Laporta. So like all the big names. And then you see all these other dudes. So any early reads about how you think those expensive tight ends will people play Gadsden after what he's done the last couple weeks?
I think you have to project him for more this week, but it's going to be hard to consistently do it when we only have a 3-game sample of that. But man, I would be surprised. I will say things are different on FanDuel from a pricing perspective. Bowers is the tight end 1 there. Kraft is actually the tight end 4 in pricing. So if you wanted your Kraft exposure, he looks like a better play, relatively speaking, on FanDuel. And I will also throw out Tyler Warren, looks pretty enticing over there as well. Kittle is 4,800. Come on, man. Like, I feel like he's going to have a huge game at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect spot where I'm still interested in cash. I mean, Kyle Pitts, I know his name's Kyle Pitts, but 9 targets this past week. If you sort by target share, targets per game, just some of the simple metrics we always talk about, like he's a fine play at his price point. It will be interested to see how the Texans pass catcher, like Nico, should be back. And how does that shift, Schultz, who is on everybody's naughty list from this past week, but then also the cheap pass catchers. Those are interesting as well. Did you see where TJ Hawkinson is?
Oh, he's buried. What is it, like 3,600 or something? 3,400.
Yeah, and it's a revenge game.
I don't know, man.
Dude, I don't remember clicking the button on TJ Hawkinson the last 2 years in best ball. Last year, it was injury stuff, and I just followed your advice. This year, the vibes were just, nah, no thanks.
Dude, it happens every year, right? Where these like projectable tight ends kind of fall in that like dead zone-y tight end 5 to tight end 10 range. And he was like the poster boy of that. Now, I don't think anybody saw it going this badly, but like last season we had Bowers in that range, if you recall, when he was a rookie. This year we had Warren and Loveland, who we really liked as like potential breakout candidates. It's been so rough for Hawkinson. I'm going to talk about him more on the Dynasty show if you want to check that out. But yeah, it just hasn't been good. I mean, hey, maybe if you wanted a cheap pivot, you could talk me into it. I definitely didn't have him on my list to start the week, I'll tell you that.
All right, I'll give you one cheap name because that's what everybody loves on a DFS podcast. Theo Johnson, 3,500. Daniel Bellinger just had a neck injury. Is that an okay range if you're trying to punt the position?
Yeah, this is what I was talking about with the Giants and Niners game being a potential fun, cheap stack where like Dart's cheap, Theo Johnson's cheap, Darius Slayton's cheap, Tyrone Tracy's pretty cheap. Like it just kind of fits to be able to spend up.
So Giants onslaught.
Giants onslaught is what you need in week 9.
All right, let's finish off with defense here. If you wanted to just look at one game and say this game has a total under 40 points, just pick a defense between the Texans and Broncos. You know they're probably the 2 most talented defenses in the league, and they're not priced up. So I'm totally fine with either of those options.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. It's like, they're both talented. So it's not a matter of like last week playing the freaking Bengals, who are terrible. But these guys are both, or these defenses are both great. I will say if I have to choose one, I think I prefer the Texans just for the savings, but both I think are in play.
Could you punt with the Giants this week?
I think you could. I mean,
2,400?
Yeah, like we got to wait and see kind of what we need to jam in cash, but I think they're fine.
There's some options that I want to pay down for that have big names like Steelers. Obviously, you're not going to play for the Bills, but they're just in terrible matchups. So it's like, to me, I look down at the bottom of the barrel. You're not going to play the Falcons because they don't play in the NFL. The Vikings play the Lions. It's like the Giants are down there, and then you're just going to go middle range. There's some great onslaught teams that we talked about earlier, Packers, Rams, that I think you can get leverage. So if you played like Kyron and the Rams defense in a tournament, I think you can get leverage, but you're also paying up for your defense. So just think about all the options this week. We're not circling those in too early. That's going to do it for this episode. We will be back on Friday to fully walk through every single part of this slate. Like we mentioned, it is jam-packed. It's going to be a good one. Betz, tell the people goodbye.
Kyle, this was a good conversation today. I needed this. I needed to turn the page from week 8 to week 9 and move forward. So hopefully things are better for us and for all of you in week 9. And we can get back on track here. Enjoy the week. We'll catch you on Friday to break it all down. See you then.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.